Hi everyone, welcome back to the Cyber Core Skills course, lesson 11. So this is a lesson that's mainly about certificates. I've titled it Many Certs Equals One Cert. So really it's about hitting that sweet spot. So initially, before we sort of dive in to the different realms of certification and what I think is the absolute sweet spot, I'm going to talk about some of the methods that initially I use for study. So a lot of the things I initially look at the sort of exam objectives, and I use a lot of these different tools in combination with each other's depending on how technical or theory heavy the actual examination is. So definitely going back to the exam objectives, making sure you hit and cover all of them, and even at the beginning and at the start of your journey, understanding what the exam's about or the certification. Adopting a good video series, and normally I accompany that with like the community, so where that'll be quite heavily on Discord for most cybersecurity qualifications. So when I'm on the community, I'll often listen out to see which video series backs up the certification best. So often you'll hear about certain video series are linked closely with certain qualifications. So like CBT Nuggets is really close with CCNA, for example, and then you've got loads of others like Udemy courses that back up the CYSA Plus exam. And then also when we're sort of dealing with more theory and practical, so if we talk about sort of publications and books, so when we're talking more about the theory side, but when we're talking more about articles or text, it might be more practical, so you actually get the most up-to-date information based on a certain tool or technology. Backing it up for more technical aspects of exams, practical labs, so signing up to either the provided exam labs that they've got, or labbing it up in your own environment is really key. So virtualization, all the software available, or packet trace for Cisco, or GNS3 if you're talking higher levels, or even building your own environment or connecting through practice labs for red teaming, things like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, all those really good environments like Immersive Labs is sort of one that I've taken on quite recently. Then leading up to sort of learning terminology and learning how they word the questions, some flashcards just to get in your really last minute definitions or key terms and key commands, and then practice questions. I'm saying do not use brain dumps because a lot of the answers will be wrong, and if for practitioner exams you shouldn't be using that and relying on those sort of resources, but provided practice questions from the actual providers themselves are often a good indication on how the questions are going to be worded, and also to check your knowledge and if there's any major gaps. So using all these combinations, you can really hit the sweet spot for sort of passing a major certification or exam, and then going on to sort of booking it through Pearson VUE or another methodology, doing it remote or in person depending on how you either want to do the course or do the exam. Brilliant. So moving on to the exams themselves. So I really like using this sort of roadmap. I've referenced it before. You can see the link there, and I'm not cutting any shortcuts. I'm just going to quickly show you with regards to on the web how flexible it is and how modern it is. So this is filming in February 2023. You can see there the last update for this was, to move it along a bit, January 2023. So it's continually updated. And you can see there some of the major certs in all different areas: network security, architecture, red teaming. So when we talk about penetration testing, and we only talk about a few of the qualifications you get, you can check what level they're at. For example, when I did eJPT quite some time ago, it's actually not at the bottom of the level. It's midway up, then growing to things like PNPT is on there, your practical penetration tester, and then all the way through to the sort of OSCP and OSWE. So that's when you've certified in all three areas of the offensive cyber qualifications. And then you've got like CRT, which is big and well respected within the sort of industry of the UK, and OSCP, which crosses over to exploitation as well. So it's sort of, this is a really good resource, and when we sort of use these, it tells you the price of the exams and also forwards you to the relevant provider's website for a description and for a breakdown of the actual exams. So once we're on here, I would typically start going looking for the exam objectives at that point. So we can see here the CISSP is broken down into different areas and sort of what qualifications come backing it up. Often, obviously, these websites are going to try to sell you the exam. Try before you buy. Make sure you understand the exam objectives before you go purchasing the exam. And one of the major driving factors that I've got to drive myself to study is either if I'm confronted with a new technology in a workplace environment and I really want to get on top of it, or if it's coming up in a future project, something that I've got to learn. So I'm sort of put against the wall and I like to come out fighting against that either bit of technology and really understand it, get to the bottoms. And to prove your knowledge after a project. So if you've dealt with a new technology, like Red Hat, for example, Linux, there's loads of Red Hat qualifications out there, and to understand and get a part of the modules, and because it's a slightly different operating system, I then sort of started recently really looking at that exam base for that. And you can just Google sort of the provider and their examination roadmap, and a lot of them have sort of different ones other than what we can see here on the wallpaper and the roadmap here. Each provider has their own roadmap, and that's what you can sort of work towards, especially if you're working towards the higher level qualifications within that roadmap. It's really good to know where you start and where you're going to end up. So let's break into the further cyber categories of exams, and this is where really my theory of many exams is actually one exam. But when I say one exam, I mean a lot of these exams cover a lot of the same exam objectives or technologies or theories, and some of them I'm just going to cover very quickly now. I've broken them down into the areas of the sort of exams that they are. So starting with networking, obviously when we talk about networking exams, we talk about the sort of big three, especially the sort of lower end, the associate level, not so much the practitioner level. We've got N+, your CompTIA, CCNA, and your Junos, Juniper NCIA, so your associate level. It's really the sweet spot in the middle. So as long as you understand your core networking technologies, principles of sort of the OSI, TCP models, your sessions, your commands, and then you understand switching and routing in general terms, you can move them between all three areas and then start locking on your sort of practitioner knowledge based on the Junos operating system and your sort of Cisco iOS commands specifically. So having a background knowledge in networking can sort of sit you in the sort of sweet spot right in the middle. And that's what the rest of the theme of this video really is sort of trying to drive that. If you can complete one, you're more or less moving on. So I sort of nod my head to Juniper and what they've done. So they're not a very foundational exam, whereas the Network Plus tend to be is. So if you completed the CompTIA N+, you can sort of move forward into CCNA or your Junos, and because of the foundation, if you can do CCNA, you can move into N+, or you can move into Junos. It's sort of quite a transitional sort of nice little pyramid there, but hitting the sweet spot, if you've got a good level of knowledge, then you can go into different areas and sort of use your skills accordingly. So don't narrow yourself down to one practitioner or one provider. Then you can sort of split into all three. If you understand subnetting fundamentally, or switching technologies like spanning tree protocol is going to be used within all three, because that's an open standard, and that's sort of key. Knowing those open standard protocols like OSPF rather than EIGRP, I know it is now, but if you understand open source and RFC governed protocols, then you're going to be good. So whereas sort of LACP is open source, so you can use that throughout all three areas, and that's really going to be mentioned in all three exams. Brilliant. So moving on, when we talk about red teaming, we're going to start about the theory of red teaming and sort of those sort of ethical hacking skill sets, that knowledge and core principles you can develop. There's a lot of exams that go along with this. So you've got Security Plus, Crest CPSA for your cybersecurity analysis, your Cisco Cyber Ops, your CompTIA PenTest Plus, and CYSA. So they all, even though that's three different exams provided by CompTIA, and I've put Security Plus separate because that is the main governor really of theory. knowledge that you gain on your Security Plus will assist you to pass the PenTest Plus and the CYSA Plus. So they sort of sit quite comfortably within each other. And then CEH, the sort of big boy of this area, also contributes towards this sort of very much hitting the sweet spot. When you've got so many more exams, it's a finite sort of eye. I can talk from experience in this area because I've worked towards Security Plus, I've got PenTest Plus, I've got CYSA, I've got CH, and I've got Cyber Ops in this sort of area. So I do come from an expert, I come from a practitioner level of description. I narrowly failed my CPSA, but that's one I want to resit. Each have got their own intricacies within these areas. So when we talk about CYSA, it'll be about risk scoring and vulnerability measurements. And when we talk about CPSA, I found it was mainly sort of database driven, peculiar. But then I'm saying there's a core level of knowledge that you've got to have that you can move and sort of complete any of these. You can move quite easy between the Cyber Ops and your Security Plus exam. So that's quite an easy move. And then just study a little bit extra for the PenTest Plus and CYSA, or CH straight to PenTest Plus. That's why these sort of overlapping theory element exams, if you've got the right level of knowledge, you can move between them, and a lot of the exam objectives cover each other. So I'm going to guess they all cover Nmap, 100%. If you know each of the attributes or each of the endings and understand stealth scan, for example, it's going to be covered in each of these exams. So there's a lot of core knowledge that you're going to gain from that. So when we move on to sort of red teaming practical, spread them. They're all different levels. And there's yet again, it's a bit of a bigger sweet spot here for these sort of red teaming practical exams. So you've got eJPT, which is your eLearn Junior Penetration Tester, your PNPT, your OSCP provided by Offensive Security, and your Crest Registered PenTester, or your CRT. So the sweet spot is sort of a little bit larger on here because the skill set sort of overlaps with sort of like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, Active Directories exploitation, all those sort of good areas that you do learn within practical labs and practical red teaming experiences. You do cover off a lot to these exams. So if you know a bit, then you don't always judge. You know a little bit on one thing. You know a little bit covering a lot of different areas, and often the little bit you know will be covered in a lot of different exams. That's what I'm trying to say. So don't ever narrow yourself down. If you want to prove yourself as an SME, you can sort of thread these together. So, or even make a journey out of it. And that's why they do cover so much. The eJPT is the foundational. Then I tended to move on to PNPT. When I passed that, my next plan would be OSCP for the time, and knowing your trade craft from PNPT and delivering it home within the 24-hour exam of OSCP. And then when you want to go for a more recognisable profession as a pen tester within UK environments, it would be that CRT that you'd go for. Or your combination, just to go back or cover it off, is the Crest CPSA plus OSCP does get you CRT registered with Crest. So you do become a practitioner level pen tester at that point. Loads of different Discord groups, as I said, there's communities for each of these and really good supportive. So eLearn or Cyber Mentor, Offensive Security, that's why I'm mentioning, and Crest have got their own Discord server. So that's why I'm saying when you're studying any of these, don't ever lock yourself down to a single exam. If you don't meet the standard of one exam, often your exam objectives may pull you back into another. So if you want a quick win and build on what you've got and a confidence builder and a bit of a benchmark, choose an exam if you want to, just a halfway house solution. At least you know you're working towards something. So going on to more cloud, we've got the more theory-based and sort of non-practitioner with the CCSK provided by ISC Squared. Then you've got AWS, Azure and Google, all their sort of foundational. And you can pretty much, as I know from experience, got both Azure Fundamentals and the AWS Cloud Practitioners now down my belt. So you can move between these and they're relatively, I sort of should have said this, they're all the same technologies, do the same thing just with a different name. But they're all driving towards security, availability and the confidentiality type pieces. The cloud for Google, sort of getting a bigger in the sphere of the element, but obviously the sweet spot's quite big for that. So have a look. If you whatever provider you're using with, then always look at one or another as well. So if you're on Google, for example, then you could probably transition to one of these, especially the CCSK, because if you're working within the sort of security element of cloud, that's really good, and you can move to look at some of the exam objectives of that. Of course, if you want to look at these links, I'll provide the links for the roadmap for the cybersecurity qualifications in the comments of this video. So take a look. Make sure you sort of observe the exam objectives before tackling any of these, but it's really easy to move across. You've got like Azure Sentinel is one of the sort of security features of Azure, which allows you for in-depth logging, and that's even mentioned within the CCSK. So it's non-provider orientated, but then mentions these essential technologies because they are so vibrant and used. And then you've got like high availability, and then you've got reliability, I think is the name within Azure. So they're the same thing, but just different names from different providers. Sometimes you offer slightly different price scoping, but there we go. Cool. Going to GRC now. So governance, risk and compliance. There's loads of exams that sit within this area, and a very small sweet spot that sort of sits around here. It's quite hard to pinpoint. I think it's around about there. So you've got CISSP, you've got from ISC squared, ISACA, CISM and CISA, which is system manager and system auditor, or security manager and security auditor. And what I'm saying is, if you know one of these, then you know 1/3 of another exam. So from CISSP, you could probably, with some extra study like I did CISSP, then jump to CISM, and then you can sort of jump across with a couple of your GIAC qualifications, work towards the certified expert, and a lot of these will team up with the sort of theory. I didn't mention sort of the incident handler, so the GCIH exam sort of sits both between practical and theory because of the questions within the exam, but you're already working towards this sort of system expert. You've got NCSC and NIST certified professionals or practitioners, which are basically a QA provided course and exam, which also sits heavily within this. So as I keep saying, if you know a bit in one, you'll know a bit of another. ITIL, even though it's the IT library framework, that sits quite within this, and if you know a bit of that, you'll know a bit of each of these because they're mentioned within each other. Everything sits on top of each other. CompTIA CASP Plus, I've not had a lot of experience within that, but I'm aware that's the sort of IT management, IT risk, cyber compliance type exam which sits within this, because CompTIA like to be a part of the party as well, and as part of their framework, lots of people have completed that, apart from outside of the big three really, which is A+, S+, and your M+. Then, providing you've got them, you can work towards your CASP Plus as well to understand the management, if you sort of come from a massive CompTIA background. But there are the other providers, and you can see, as we mentioned before, sort of sitting behind all the sort of the wallpaper, lots of them move across all the boundaries of sort of cybersecurity. As we can see, the broad ones, GSEC, and then you've got GSEC is GCIA, so that's SANS provided, the same as this one, and you can see how wide they sort of fulfill. Even Security Plus sort of sits across risk management, asset testing, and asset security, whereas sort of your CISSP and your CASP Plus sit on the sort of architecture and engineering, so they'll be a little bit more technical as well. And from experience, I sort of know the CISSP is non-technical exam, but does contain sort of some practical element, some theory technical questions as well about applications of security frameworks like tunnel over VPN or TTVP, for example. Cool. So project management, one of the last slides we're working with. So we've got loads of project management qualifications and certifications that's on top of each other. Prince2, APM, so that's your Agile. You've got Certified ScrumMaster, another Agile-based framework. CompTIA Project Plus, so that's the CompTIA directed project management qualification. Sigma, so Six Sigma, which is a sort of framework for project management, goes in line with Prince2 and sort of Agile pulls bits from that. You can see how much, if you know a bit or done a bit, it applies to others. So look at, if you sort of do work within the project management space, which proctored exam or which principled exam applies to you more for your place of work, or what's going to benefit you in the next stage. So I just want to thank you very much for watching, and happy if you get in touch or connect with me on any of the platforms, but hope this video has been worthwhile, and thanks for watching.